Well, hello everyone and welcome. Welcome to episode 3 in our webinar series where we are showcasing the PaperSave solution. My name is Michael and I'm your host this morning, and I'm joined by Tammy. Hi Tammy, how are you going?
Good morning, I'm doing well.
Excellent, and welcome back. Welcome back, Tammy, for episode 3. And welcome back to anyone that's joined us for the first 2 episodes or even watched the recordings of the first 2 episodes. And if you haven't, that's okay as well. Although this is episode 3, Tammy's actually going to take us through a bit of a recap on what we've shown so far during the series, as well as then go a little bit deeper into some really specific functionality, a little bit of a advanced functionality there for us. So I'm really looking forward to that. Before we get started, just a couple of really quick logistical items. So firstly, questions. So if you do have any questions during the session, please just pop those into the questions box on the right-hand side of your screen there in your GoToWebinar panel. There's a little questions tab. You can just put your questions in there, and we will save some time at the end of the session to go through those. But I do want to do a little bit of a bigger advertisement on that piece. Tammy and I want to do a little bit of an interactive catch up with you after the session today. So we'll turn the recording off and we'll go into a little bit of live question and interaction there. So really looking forward to that. It'd be great if you could stick around and join us for that piece. We are, of course, recording the session today, as we always do for you, and we will send that through as a follow-up after the session today. So you will get a copy of today's recording. As I mentioned, I am joined by Tammy again, so it's welcome back, Tammy. And I've done this intro a few times now, Tammy, so I want to just focus on one thing. Certainly the thing that I think is most relevant to today's session, and that is your crossover experience there in terms of the work that you've done in the accounting field and worked as an accounts payable administrator there in the early days, and then transitioning into the software and IT space. So I think really well placed there to be demonstrating and presenting from a real genuine working knowledge, not just about talking about features and functionality. It's really about how things work, which I think is great. And I also learned, because I think it's good to introduce you, I also learned that you're big into Christmas and you've got some trees in your front yard.
I am. Yes, I'm guilty of that. Yes, love
You're
Christmas.
One of those families. Yeah, no, that's excellent. That's excellent.
I like to play on my 5 grandchildren, but it really stems from a long time ago. So
well, now you've got an extra reason.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And as I said, my name's Michael, and I look after a few things here at PA, and one is our client services management team. So working with our account managers to make sure that our clients are getting the most from their solution, and then looking at ways we can enhance that solution. I think PaperSave is a great way in particular for organisations to enhance their Dynamics GP solution. So that's why I'm really excited about the episode 3 today in our webinar series. So on that note, I will hand over to Tammy to take us through the presentation. Tammy, we'll turn off our cameras just to free up some real estate, and then we'll put our cameras back on at the end when we wrap up.
Perfect.
Thanks, Tammy.
All right. Well, again, thank you all for joining us today on the third episode, which is the last, which is kind of sad, but I think that the episodes that we've given have really provided, or including this one, will provide a lot of information for you. So as Michael mentioned, I'm going to go through a quick recap of PaperSave and what we can do and what we offer. I'm then going to take you through what I refer to as the day in the life of an invoice. What happens? It comes into your office, and what do you do with it? And then the last part of this session, I'm going to go through some new functionality that if you have watched or attended the last 2 previous episodes, this will all be new to you. And I'm really excited because the last part is, it's always great once the documents are captured and approved, but where do you go to get them? And that's what we're going to focus on that last step of the agenda. So the first thing I want to do, again, kind of go through who PaperSave is and what we do. So PaperSave is one piece of software, but it really has 3 or 4 key components to it, if you will. The first piece is what we refer to as document management. Document management is the capture. How do the documents get into PaperSave? Scan them, email, drag and drop, integration with Microsoft Office suite of products. So along the toolbar in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, there's so many different ways that PaperSave, you can leverage PaperSave to bring the documents in. But also part of document management is the storage. They are housed in the PaperSave database, and they're retrievable right from the GP transactions. So if you work inside of GP and that's where you spend the majority of your day, PaperSave becomes a natural extension to the way you work with inside a GP. But don't worry, if you're not a GP user, there are ways that you can get to the documents as well. And we'll cover that a little bit more at the end of this session. Security is also part of document management because you want to make sure that the documents that you have that are stored, you can set restrictions around who can see them and then what can they do with them if they can see them. And so PaperSave offers that as well. And then retention. As Michael had mentioned earlier, I spent some time in my early career as an accounts payable admin. And I can tell you from then until now, not much has changed in the accounting world. If you're dealing with paper, not much has changed. You're still putting things in filing cabinets, and that retention is one of the things that is near and dear to my heart inside of PaperSave, because I remember having to empty out all the filing cabinets, put things in banker boxes, label them. I'd have to make new file folders and all of that. Well, PaperSave has a tool that allows you to set your own retention policies. So if you need to keep invoices for 7 years and supporting documents to journal entries 2 years, great. You set up rules, the system will automatically archive them. So document management is just that. It's the management of those documents that support your data inside of Dynamics GP. Workflow. Workflow is the second piece of PaperSave, and it is that routing of a document for approval and review. And we're going to go through that today in detail. OCR, if you're not familiar with that term, it stands for optical character recognition. And really that is just a fancy term for eliminating manual data entry, right? So when you capture documents, invoices, PaperSave is going to extract data off of that and do a lot of the data entry that you're now normally doing, keying into payable transactions. And then a key component is that real-time integration into Dynamics GP. We leverage the API integration tools. Actually, we leverage the stored procedures within inside of GP, and there's no batch loads that you have to upload or import. It's real-time, and we're going to show that to you again today. So the live demo today is going to be of the day in the life. You're going to see me do some capturing. I'm not going to do all of them, but you're going to see that I can scan documents. We monitor that email address, drag and drop. The OCR, you're going to see that work. The OCR, when we capture documents, we're literally pulling specific values off of the invoice, and it's the vendor name, street address, and phone number. We then check your GP database to find the matching vendor. We populate what are called profile fields in PaperSave with the vendor ID, the invoice date, invoice number, dollar amount, and invoice date, if I said that. And then any other information that might automatically default will automatically be populated as well, like GL distribution or due date or pay date, whatever it might be. And then we're going to route the documents through a workflow. And really, when you think about workflow, workflows are in place for a couple of reasons. One, it's to streamline the process, right? So think about right now, even though you have, maybe you don't have an electronic way that you're routing documents, it's still a workflow. Even if you've got paper and you're scanning and attaching it to an email and routing that out, well, that's a workflow. Well, if you can streamline even more, where people are automatically getting reminders, things are being moved along in a timely manner if they sit in somebody's inbox longer than X number of days or period of time. You can set those things up in electronic workflow inside of PaperSave. approvers get that notification. They can approve on the go, whether they're sitting at their desk or from the mobile, their mobile app, or excuse me, their mobile phone from our mobile app. They really can approve anywhere. So it streamlines that process, eliminates bottlenecks, and at the end of the process, nobody has to do data entry into GP, because remember, we've done that OCR up front, and any additional information like GL distribution that needs to be added has been added along that approval process, and they hit a button and the document the transaction is created based on those values. Now, this is the workflow that I'm going to take you through. Now, I like to show an image of the workflow, or a visual of the workflow, because I'm one person. I'm going to be playing all of these roles, right? So when you think about a workflow, there are specific steps, and you can see that there are a lot of forks in the roads in this workflow that I'm going to take you through. And the reason for that is because you might have different rules around an approver or a reviewer. Maybe some person can approve documents that are over a certain dollar amount, but somebody else has a lower threshold. Well, when they approve the document, they don't have to determine where it goes. PaperSave, based on your rules, will decide whether or not it should go over to that escalation step or straight over to accounts payable. Or maybe you don't want to approve it at all, you want to reject it, and there's some rules around that as well. So as we go through this process of the capture, of the OCR, and then of the workflow, keep in mind the different people in your world, in your corporation, who have to touch an invoice. In this case, that's what we're going to be doing through the workflow, is an invoice. And how many times that might come back to you if you're in the accounting side, and then have to send it back. Because one of the things that workflows can do too is, I used to call it the ping pong effect. I'd send out an invoice, it'd come back inter-office envelope to me with the approval on it, but then I'd look at it and go, oh, it's over a certain dollar amount. I'd have to send it back out to somebody else, and that's that back and forth. Well, PaperSave with a workflow can eliminate that ping pong effect. All right, so we're going to do that first. Day in the life of, whoops, jumping ahead here. Day in the life of the invoice. And of course, my password, I got it, my machine times out, so I've got to put a password in. All right, so what you should be looking at now is my homepage of GP. And that's great, we're going to end up there, but that's not where we need to start. So I'm going to come out here to my messy desktop here, and I'm going to start capturing some documents. Now remember, PaperSave can capture documents many ways. One of the key ways that I believe the majority of our customers utilize is the ability for PaperSave to monitor an email address. Because our philosophy is, listen, if it's already coming to you electronically, then let's keep it electronic. So if you have that AP invoice at yourorganisationname.com email address where your suppliers are sending you their invoices, great. PaperSave can be set up through configuration. I'm not going to show that to you today, to actually look to that email address and automatically bring the document into the workflow. All right. Now, we also have full integration with Outlook. So right along the toolbar, and I should have had this open, but right along the toolbar, I can add a document. Now I'm going to go into my deleted areas here just to open up a document or an invoice email. And so see this, add document to PaperSave. So if I only wanted to add the attachment, I would say add attachment. If I wanted to take this full email and the attachment, I would say add document. But I can take this, PaperSave remembers where I've been most recently, and I can now add this Best Buy document right into the workflow. So we can monitor that central email address, but if an individual gets an email from a supplier, you can give them this plugin to add the document right from their Outlook. Nobody needs to touch it again for it to get in there. Now, the other way to capture documents is through, I'm going to reset this here, is through PaperSave Scan. Now, we can monitor, we can leverage a multi-function unit, that network printer, photocopier, fax machine scanner, which is great. That might be the scanner that you'll use. keep in mind that those typically can go right to an email address, right? And so what can PaperSave do? Monitor an email address. But for that paper, if there's somebody who has a scanner hooked up to their workstation, great, we can leverage those as well. And they would go into PaperSave Scan. And so I'm going to come in here, I'm going to pick my workflow, and I've got a lot to choose from. So we can talk about that later on, maybe if you have more questions on how workflows are set up and so forth. But I picked the workflow that I want to scan these documents in, and I have a little Fujitsu 7160 hooked up to my workstation, and I've got a stack of some documents sitting in there, so I'm going to scan them. And the only reason why I'm showing you scanning, not because it's anything special, and you should probably see here it going through, not because it's anything special, but mainly because I like to show how you're going to be able to see this OCR capture, and it's pretty fast. So as you look down here, I've got my 4 documents. Now, keep in mind, mine are all single page documents, so that's probably not real world. PaperSave certainly can handle multiple paged invoices, but as we do this, it's going to start populating the vendor. Remember, it's looking for the vendor name, the street address, and the phone number, and it's double checking that against your GP database, and you can see that already found that, and it then starts populating some of the other fields. Now, one of the things I do want to mention is that OCR is not 100% accurate. So you can see here that it didn't find the invoice number. Well, PaperSave's OCR is built on what we refer to as invoice definitions. So order number is what this vendor supplier uses as their invoice number. Well, that's not a typical invoice number definition, but that's okay because PaperSave gives you the ability to point and click, and then I can learn this field for this vendor. So I can tell the system that order number is what you need to look for when you find Northwind's Trader. Now, one of the other things that PaperSave, oops, I'm going to come back up here, is going to do is, as I tab off of this, see how the distribution was populated? Think about when you manually do data entry into a payables transaction into GP. Well, if you've got defaults on that vendor card, it automatically populates it in the distribution area. Well, PaperSave does the same thing. So that is the OCR. And again, I'm just gonna tab through these, and you can see how this is populating that. All right. Now, normally I would go in and I check all of those and make sure that they were all right, but I'm not going to do that right now just because of time. So let's say that we've now submitted those documents. So they're all sitting in. If you think about that workflow, the first step of the workflow is what I refer to as the keying step, or the AP validation step. You can call it whatever you want, but this is where accounting is going to either put in the GL distribution, maybe they're going to do the routing, and so on. But regardless of who you are and what role you play inside of the workflow, you're always going to get email notifications. And that's one of the things that I think is important, if I get to the right inbox here. And you will see that everyone will get an email notification letting them know that they've got documents. So you don't have to be that person that's constantly reminding them, right? Somebody else is going to be doing that. PaperSave, and this email will come out as frequently as you want. It's come out, and it just tells them that they've got documents, and they can click on one of these hyperlinks to get to the document. So again, remember, we've got a mobile app. If they look at this email on their mobile phone, whether it's an Android or iPhone, they can tap on this hyperlink, and it's going to automatically launch PaperSave. Now, I'm not going to click on anything because this is actually the last step of my workflow. So I want to play that first step. So down here, I have it pinned. Now, keep in mind, PaperSave has a lot of ways to get to the pieces of the software. And I happen to have a shortcut here pinned, and that's just my user preference. But it's telling me that in this step, I'm in the keying step, and I have this to go down. We'll pin it so it stays up. It's telling me I've got 22 documents sitting in my inbox, right? And that's what my email would have reflected. The one that's highlighted is the one that's showing up here. At this point, I get to choose the manager, or if you've got, a lot of times what will happen is that the distribution might determine where it goes, and that's fine. You can do that as well. But I'm going to go ahead and send this to Quinn. Oops, Buckner. Here we go. And so I'm going to put Quinn's name in there. But remember, the distribution can be pulled from the vendor card, or I'm going to show how a manager can update it. But now I just send it. Oh, I say keyed, and the system is going to send this over to Quinn, right? Keep in mind, I'm picking a manager. That may or may not be how you guys do it. You can have it based on vendor. You can have it based on GL distribution. And I'm just going to make sure that all of this is in there correctly. And I'm going to hit Quinn. I keep saying Quinn, but I want Buckner in there. There we go. And we're just going to route everything to Buckner. So as accounts payable, remember, all of the invoices are going to end up in my inbox. I'm going to check that for correcting of the OCR. And again, I can do all of that throughout here as well. So as you see here, it did not find the invoice date. That's okay. All I have to do is point and click to the invoice date. I can draw a box around it, and I can learn it and drag that in there as well. And oh, I forgot to put the manager. So I can do all of that correcting right from the inbox. Oops. All right. Let's put that in there. All right. So now I'm going to filter. We're going to talk about filtering in a minute and why that is important, but I'm going to play all the roles. I'm going to play Quinn, but remember, Quinn is going to get her email. She's going to click on this inbox or this hyperlink. It's going to take her right to her invoices. And you can see them down here. I'm going to go in, I'm playing Quinn, and here are my documents. Oops, let's go to the next one first. All right, so these are Quinn's documents. And remember, I get to see and do everything in my system. So I get to see everybody's inbox. And I'll tell you why that's important for an accounting person. You always want to know where documents are, right? That's important to you. In a paper world, you have no idea, or even if you've attached it to an email and sent it out, you really, once it leaves your inbox, you have no idea where it is. In PaperSave, you can search for documents and find them at any given time. And we're going to talk about that towards the end here. All right, so I'm now playing Quinn, right? Quinn has 33 documents sitting in her inbox. What I want you to see is this column that just popped up. This is PaperSave's workflow history. So every time a document goes from one step to another, PaperSave date, time, and user stamps who the person was that changed the role. Now, even though Kevin was the owner, that's who I was playing in that first step, that AP validation step. But it's always capturing my name as the approver or the router or the keyer, whatever the step name is, because I'm the one that's logged in. Now, I also want to mention that this date format is US. I'm sitting in Kansas City, Missouri, in the United States, and so I am working in a United States system, but we do have this system set up for Australia date and time. We also have GST and all of that good stuff. So we have taken care of that, worked closely with Professional Advantage. I just want to make that as a side note that your dates will be in the correct format. I believe it's day, month, year, right? Anyway, so Quinn can see where this document came before her. Now, if Quinn is supposed to put it in the GL distribution, well, great. Quinn can look up, she can type the name. This is literally looking up the chart of accounts from your GP system. Now, when I type in supplies, I can see every account number. But if Quinn was in the sales department and you told the system, hey, Quinn's in the sales department, she can only choose from the 300 series. Well, great. When she types in supplies, she'll only get to choose from these 4 accounts, right? And so then she can put that in there, and I forgot what the dollar amount was on this one. Because it didn't bring anything over, I've got to put a dollar amount in. Well, it's 0, maybe that's why. We'll put in $50, and I'll fix that in a second. It's going to tell me I've got an error here, or not an error, but it doesn't match. That's okay. We're just going to change this to 50 for the time being, just because of time in my demo. Now, Normally, right, I would have caught that through the OCR and fixed it. And just because of time, I'm kind of skipping over that step. Anyways, so at this point, Quinn hits approve. Now, Quinn doesn't have to worry about where it goes to next, because remember, the rules within the workflow will automatically route it, right? And she gets the next one in the stack. Again, she can put in that GL distribution, change it, do whatever, and she just hits approve, all right? So that's how simple it is, whether they're working from their home, sitting at a computer, at their desk in the office or at home, or they're standing in line at the grocery store to, to pay for their groceries. They could be on their mobile app and approving documents. So it eliminates all of that bottleneck, right? Well, once all of that information is in there and it gets routed to those individuals, guess what happens? The last step of the process is accounts payable. And remember, in accounts payable, I said that it eliminates that manual data entry. So here I am, I'm playing Kevin again, and Kevin has, I think, 7 documents sitting, no, I think he does, 7 documents sitting in his inbox. And so I'm going to make my grid go away, and I can see now where this document has been, right? And at this point, all I have to do is look at it. Maybe I do need to put in the GL distribution at this step. That's, again, up to you all. I can see who's approved it, when, and where it's been. And all I have to do is hit a submit button. It's going to take all of this data and it's going to create that transaction in GP. Now, one of the things I am going to do, change the invoice number. PaperSave, just like GP, checks for duplicates. It checks it upon the time it gets into the workflow, because remember, we've already gathered all of this information. So it will send it off to another inbox that says possible duplicates. If there's a if there's a payables transaction in GP that matches this. But it also checks again upon the submit, because if somebody walked up to you with a piece of paper and said, hey, this needs to go in, and you manually create a transaction, which of course exceptions always happen even if you have PaperSave, PaperSave is going to check again before creating that transaction for a duplicate. So I'm going to hit submit. It takes all of this information. It creates the transaction within inside of Dynamics GP. I get the next one in the stack. Again, I get to validate and verify, is this information correct? Now, I could have a reject button as well, and I could send it back to that next person, back to the manager, send it off to my director. I remember that, as an AP person, listen, there's always those exceptions, and sometimes I would get something that was fully approved, but I'd want somebody else to look at it. So that's really a day in the life. We captured the documents. We did the OCR on them. They were routed for approval. Now, a couple of other things I do want to bring up again that I mentioned in the last episode are things that you can do with inside of the workflow. One of the things that we know is that causes delay is people being gone, right? Whether it's on vacation, leave, whether it's planned or unexpected. Well, with PaperSave, you can set your out of office. So if I'm going to be gone on leave for maybe the rest of this week and next week, I can then change this and say, okay, I want everything to go to Karen, and I'm going to say on vacation or on leave. And if I hit update, the remaining documents sitting in Kevin's inbox will be forwarded over to Karen, and then anything that's automatically routed to him in the normal process because of the workflow rules will automatically be sent to Karen until this date. And there will be another dialog box in the workflow history that says, actually it says forwarded, and it says system forwarded it because Kevin is on vacation. In that comment box, it would say on vacation. So Karen would at least know that why she got all of that information, the extra work to do while he was gone. Now, another thing that I do want to show you as an accounts payable admin too, while we're in here, is I've been filtering. And remember, I played all the roles. I played that first keying step. And again, I call it keying. You could call it routing, sorting, correcting, validation. You can call it whatever you want. I then also played a manager as a review. And then I skipped some of these other steps and I was at this AP review. But what if you're looking for something? A vendor is called and you need to find that invoice. Well, PaperSave, as an admin of the system, I can say I don't care about what step the document is in. You can see down here that there are 77 documents in this workflow in various steps. And I can now search for something. If I'm looking for a specific vendor, I can come down here to my vendor column, and I can search, and I can say, okay, I want to find anything that contains the word, we'll just say Northwind, okay, or North. Well, it's going to narrow all of those documents down from 77 to 19. I now can see what step of the workflow they're in, who the current owner is. I've got the invoice number, right? And so let's just hypothetically, let's say that it's, it's this one that's sitting in Quinn's inbox, right? Well, what can I do from here? Once I open it up, I can email this right out to Quinn, and I can say, hey, Quinn, please approve this right away. I click, just email, and it will start an email. I can send this out to Quinn, and my notes, please approve. Right? So, well, it's not spelled right, but that's okay. I can send that out to her right from there. So you've got options of searching for documents, finding them, and then I can also move them. If I needed to move them to a different step or owner in the workflow, I can do that as well. So not only can this workflow automatically eliminate bottlenecks for you and move things around, but then you're also going to be able to do that manually if you need to. All right, so that's very quickly, that was a day in the life. And we're going to come back out here and let me show you this. And we're going to talk about, for the next few minutes that we have left, I think we have about 10 or 15 minutes left, I want to talk about the searching, retrieving, and the sharing of the documents. Because once the documents have been captured and they get routed and we've just created some transactions in GP, now you need to gather some documents up, or you just need to find documents. I showed how you can search for a document within the workflow, but PaperSave has some very unique ways that allow our customers to find documents. The first one is content search. I call that finding the needle in the haystack. I remember, again, way back when somebody would tell me or ask me, hey, where did we buy this printer or chair or whatever it was? Well, I had to rely on my memory for that. But with PaperSave, we've got content search. And so I'm going to show you how you can type in a word or a number and find that document or any document that contains that word. We also had to have advanced search. Advanced search allows us to search the database, the PaperSave document database, for combinations of maybe words in the document, dollar amounts of the invoice, type of document, maybe it's an invoice or maybe it's a statement, and we can actually search for different pieces of information combined together to find that document. And then the last search I'm gonna show you and retrieval is that SmartList, and I'm sure all of you utilize that SmartList. It's a very powerful tool. And then I'm going to show you what you can do with those documents once you find them. All right, so let's go back out to my GP here, or my home page here. All right, so let's go to GP first. All right, now down here in the tray, in my hidden icons, I've got a PaperSave icon. And if I right click on that, I can now search for documents, all right? So this search for documents is going to allow me to search for things that might be inside of the workflow. It might be not in the workflow. They might be associated to transactions or not. But this is that what I call simple search, and this is where I'm going to show you that content. So I can search for record information as well, but I think content information is probably the best powerful thing that we have. Now, when you capture documents, if you're scanning them, they might be PDFs, scanned in as PDFs, they could be TIFF. If you are dragging and dropping documents, they could be those, but they also could be Word documents or Excel documents. Maybe you're saving emails of communications that you had with vendors or suppliers or customers. Well, PaperSave can search all of those types of documents. So I'm going to just type in the word wall mount and I'm going to say go. Now, PaperSave is searching the database, and keep in mind, I've been doing this for a long time, so I probably have documents from a long time ago. But you can see here that most of them are invoices. If I choose one of them, great, there's a lot. There were 26 documents that came up with that word, and you'll see if I scroll down within this document that it found the word wall mount right within the document, right? So it showed that it was highlighted. Now I just clicked on one, right? I can choose, I'm going to close that up here. I could choose all of them, right? Or I'm sorry, up here, I can choose all of them. And I could flip through them like a slideshow. So if I open up this one, the first one, I can open it up and say open selected. Sorry, needed to be up there, not double click on it. And then it allows me to flip through and one at a time, like a slideshow. I can see the word, I can see the workflow. Now, these might all be the same document, but they are all different instances of the document. So every time I flip through these, not only am I able to see the workflow, which is fantastic, but PaperSave is also doing something else. It is creating an audit trail. Not only do we have an audit log on where the document was in the workflow, but I can also see who's viewed this document, who modified it, if somebody saved it out on the network drive someplace and reproduced it by saving it or printing it, it's going to track all of that, all right? So I can search for content. Now, I want you to remember this grid, because anytime you have a grid, you're going to be able to do something else with it that I'll show later on. Advanced search is that search that allows me to combine pieces of information. So maybe I want to look for all of my invoices, and we're going to look at payables, transactions, and I want to look at all of my invoices, and I want to find the invoices that are maybe an amount, right? So I can do an amount that is greater than, we'll say $500. And then I want to add another row, and I want to find anything that maybe has a user-defined profile field. That's what these are called down here, profile fields that are, let's say, equal to invoice. And I can do and or, right? So these are kind of combination. We're going to say and I could keep going, date, range, state that the vendors are in, whatever it might be, right? And then I hit go. PaperSave is going to pull all of those documents. And again, I get this grid. Now, if this is a search and a query that you want to do all the time, well, great. I can save this. A lot of our customers will use this for contract management, right? And so they want to get a list of all the contracts that are expiring this month or next month. Well, great. Those are user-defined profile fields. They're going to be able to do that. And again, just like the other query that I did, I can flip through them like a slideshow, right? And every time I do that, it's tracking whether or not I've changed anything or just viewed the document, all right? Now, you're going to always see my name because I'm the only one that's in here. So that's searching outside of Dynamics GP, right? I can do this query. I can share. I can print this information. I hope when you implement PaperSave, you never print another piece of paper again. But you could, if you needed to, you can save it, and you can also email these out as well. Not only as attachments, but as links. That might be a lot, 66, but you could do it. And I'm going to show you one other thing that you can do, but I'm not going to show it from here. I'm going to show it from the SmartList. All right, so we're going to close that. That's PaperSave search. But now let's go into GP and let's do a search from within inside of GP, and we're going to do a SmartList. And again, you all know the power behind SmartList, right? SmartList allows you to do a query on the tables and the the values inside of your system. Now, again, I'm going to do something very simple, but I'm going to say, give me all of my invoices between a certain dollar amount. And oh, I do want to make sure that they are payables transactions that are invoices. And again, I'm doing something very simple. But GP pulled all of those transactions. I hope that nobody ever wants to see 461 documents. But I'll tell you, if they do, it's very simple with PaperSave. All I have to do is come up to additional. I can say show documents from query. And again, what are you going to get? You're going to get that PaperSave window that's going to show you all of those documents. Here they are in a summary, right? That's how quick it was. It pulled 460 some odd documents in seconds. Again, if I want to see them, I click on this box and I can open them. But let's say the auditors want to see this, all right? Well, we don't want to print these. We don't want to save them and download them, again, making another copy. Emailing out 400 and some odd links would be way too much. So let's go over to the option tab. Now, this option tab was on both of the other searches that I showed you as well, right? And what do you see here? Export to Excel. But before we do that, we're going to set some columns here, all right? Because there's a lot of information here that I really don't care, that mean nothing, and the auditors don't need to see, like file name and format type. We definitely want ID, and we'll talk about that in a second. Document type, we know that they're invoices. Maybe we know the company is the same, you know, it's all the same company, so we can get rid of that. You know, we can set these columns so that they make sense to what we want that individual to see. And then once we do that, we have this ID button here that we said we wanted to show. We export it out. PaperSave is going to create this Excel spreadsheet. Excel opens up. That's how quick it is. You can see all the line items, all of the information, all of those values, vendor ID, vendor name, account amount, invoice number, and all of that. And you send this over to your auditors, right? Share it with them. Now, they have to have a license, a user license into PaperSave to do this, but it can be a temporary one, right? When they see the, oh, this is the one we want to look at, they click on that hyperlink, PaperSave launches for them. It's going to launch here in a second. And they can actually see that document. Maybe today. There we go. PaperSave's launching, and they can see that document. Now, keep in mind, they're not going to be able to change anything. They're not going to be able to print it, delete it, but they can see the document. They can also see the workflow, just like we've seen in all the other views of the documents, right? And guess what? Every time they open it, it's telling that they've opened it, right? So at the end of the audit, when they've asked for 462 documents, you can actually see the ones that they looked at. And that is our integration with SmartList. All right. I think that, Michael, I think I did it, and I have a minute left.
I love the I love the right on time. Very brilliant. And look, thanks. You covered a lot today, and I know that you did a bit of an update as well on some things that we've gone over in episode 1 and 2. So it was great to just pull that together in the day of life. I really like that. But certainly for me, you know, the piece that I like the best is that you've got all this information and you've got all this data stored and captured, and what now? What do I do with it? I love that search capability, the inquiry, and that extra audit trail there on knowing or tagging what people have actually been doing and looking at. I think that's brilliant. So thanks for sharing.
When you talk about security, when you talk about security around those documents, it's really important to know what people have done with them, and that's what that audit trail brings you.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, look, hey, I want to do a really quick wrap up, and then again, just note that we do want to get into a little bit of an interactive piece, which would be great if people could stay on the call for that as well. But just to wrap up, you know, we've done the 3 episodes now, and obviously your account manager will follow up with you. But we just want to, Tammy and I just want to make sure that everyone was aware that while we've done the webinars and there's been some really good generic content presented to everyone, of course we can go into a one-on-one presentation and take you through some of the specifics for your scenario and how that may apply to your organisation. So for you and your organisation, using or potentially using PaperSave. So more than happy to do a one-on-one session there for you moving forward. But we'll make sure that the account management team connect with you and follow up on those as well as part of the follow-up to these episodes. So on that note, I do want to say a very big thank you to everyone for joining in the 3 episodes today. As Tammy alluded to, it's a little bit sad, episode 3. It's like it's the end of the series, but obviously that means that we've got the opportunity to go into series 2. That's what everyone waits for. So this is series 1, end of episode 3 and series 1. So we'll look for series 2 in 2021. But look, thank you, Tammy, for taking us through the content today. It was great. I covered a lot of things and wrapped it up really nicely. And thanks everyone for joining in the session today. And we look forward to talking to you about PaperSave